When you own a rental property, dealing with a security deposit is not something that should come as a shock to you when the tenant moves out. So the question is why is dealing with a security deposit such a huge nightmare? Now, if you've had a tenant from hell, please leave me a comment and don't forget to smash the thumbs up button and subscribe to this channel. When we're thinking about the ever-daunting task of having to deal with the damages to a property when the tenant moves out, it can be a very, very stressful situation and a huge undertaking. As a matter of fact, the security deposit disposition is the #1 reason that landlords actually get sued. This normally is due to a dispute regarding the perceived damage to a rental property when the tenant moves out. Every different region of the area has their own rules and regulations as to how much is due and when it must be returned back to the tenant upon move out. For example, in Houston, Texas, you have exactly 30 days to get the remaining security deposit back to the tenant, or you could be liable for 3 times the amount. Understand that every location has different laws and timeframes. However, the challenge is that nobody really takes the time to think about how they will actually decide how much of the security deposit that they will or maybe will not give back. Now, this is predicated on damage that's done to the property. A lot of people decide how they're going to charge the tenant based on maybe how much work they had to personally do, or maybe just their opinion of how bad the property was damaged without taking into account the fact that there actually are rules, regulations, and laws that are there to protect both parties. So who's responsible? The best way to know who should pay for the repairs is with documentation first and foremost. What you need to do is you need to document the condition of the house before the tenant moves in. Now, you want to document it all with date stamped photographs, but you could and probably should expect disputes and have the proof to back up your charges. When in doubt, always go back to what is in writing and what's been signed. This is commonly referred to as a lease agreement. What's stated in this agreement is really what's going to prove or disprove your case in a court of law. You cannot dictate how you think or what you feel is the right way to get the property returned back to you when the tenant leaves and what you think is a fair amount. The more clearly it's defined and set in writing in the beginning, the easier it's going to be when the time comes to address this situation when the tenant moves out. Set expectation meetings. Setting possible price points before the tenant moves in when they sign the lease is something that I recommend doing to all landlords and tenants. Create a list of potential prices that you can go over when they move out and what they could be charged. Next, walkthrough inspections. Doing an initial walkthrough with the tenant is one way to avoid security deposit disputes. A landlord and new tenant should walk through the property prior to the tenant moving in. Pictures and video should be taken so that you can use it as a baseline and there's no relying on the memory a few years later when the tenant actually does move out. Now, I suggest adding a checklist to your lease agreement and include that checklist of all the rooms, appliances, fixtures, and anything else you can think of where the tenant should note the condition upon moving in. And I agree that both the landlord and tenant should sign this document, both of them acknowledging that they agree with the current condition. Now, when the tenant is moving out of the rental unit, the landlord and the tenant should again walk the property to document any changes of the condition of the property based on the beginning of the tenancy. Pictures along with the video again should be taken so that there's no misinterpretation of what is damage, what's wear and tear, etc. And the landlord at that point can pin out any issues he has with the current condition of the property and explain why he will be taking the deductions from the tenant's security deposit to be able to cover those damages. Now, the tenant can agree with or they could actually dispute the landlord's findings. I mean, when you think about it, that's their right as a tenant. The first thing we have to do is understand definitions, as this is key and it's paramount to knowing what is not wear and tear. The definition of normal wear and tear is deterioration that results from intended use of a dwelling, including breakage or malfunction due to the age or deterioration condition. This is something that one could ask themselves when you're looking at any time that they're evaluating the condition of the property after the tenant moves out, and ask yourself, is this damage? Or maybe is this wear and tear? Defining normal wear and tear. Now, normal wear and tear is the expected decline in the condition of a property due to normal everyday usage. It's the deterioration that occurs in the course of living in that property. It's not caused by abuse and it's not caused by neglect. Now, some examples of normal wear and tear could include maybe a couple of small stains on the carpet, a couple of scrapes, or maybe even some dings in wood flooring, the color of the carpet or even hardwood that's fading due to exposure of maybe the sun, having dirty grout, loose door handles, silver finish on the bathroom fixtures beginning to maybe wear away. These are all examples of wear and tear. And normal wear and tear does include dustiness, dirty blinds, small pinholes in the wall unless they're excessive, worn out batteries in the smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, fading in the curtains, the paint, or wallpaper due to the age or even sun exposure, broken light bulbs, normal dirty and wear in carpets, plumbing issues that are arising just from normal everyday usage, expenses related to wear and tear that cannot be deducted from the security deposit. Now, these are normal expenses to wear and tear that cannot be deducted from the security deposit. So the next question that you need to ask yourself is, what is not the definition of normal wear and tear? Now, this would be damage that's caused by neglect, misuse, or excessive force that can fall outside the definition of normal wear and tear. Defining damage. Damage is not naturally occurring. It's harm that affects the value, the usefulness, or normal function of a property. Now, this damage can be committed on purpose or maybe even through neglect. Here's some examples of damage that might include some of the following. Maybe a smashed bathroom mirror, a broken toilet seat, a hole in the middle of a door, damaged or missing door handles and locks, or last but not least, carpet that's soaked with pet urine. Now, damage can be defined further as issues that are unexpected. For example, it's not normal or expected for there to be a large hole in the bedroom wall after a tenant moves out of a unit. Now, like everything in life, there are other factors that must be taken into account when deciding how much normal wear and tear and how much actual damage is being done by a tenant. For example, length of tenancy needs to be taken into consideration. Maybe if a tenant stays at a house for 4 years, there's gonna be much more wear and tear than if they were just there for, let's say, maybe 1 year. Life expectancy of the item should also be taken into consideration. For example, let's talk about flooring. Ceramic tile flooring would have a much longer life expectancy than normal everyday carpet. I say pictures are worth 1,000 words. The key is to have documentation of the condition of the property in detail prior to that tenant moving in, and then document it equally as detailed at the time that the tenant moves out. Without this, you better give the deposit back because you are not going to stand a chance in court. And if you lose, you might have to pay far more than the deposit in the end. Things that may not be considered normal wear and tear include some of the following: numerous or sizable holes in the wall, appliances that are broken as a result of misuse, unapproved paint on the walls, excessive dirtiness in the kitchen or the bathroom, major pest infestations, broken doors or disabled locks, pet stains, burns, or holes in the carpet. Now, newer investors, or maybe those that are emotionally attached to their properties, may have a very hard time making these calls because of their emotional attachment to the property and not setting the standard of what is acceptable and, more importantly, what is not. So many times it becomes an emotional decision, not a mathematical one. I personally have never seen anyone make an emotional decision when they might be upset, and later on they told me, you know what, that was the right way to go, and I'm happy I went that direction. Always remember, this is a business, and always treat it that way. Look, you're not always gonna have all the answers, and things are gonna come up that you're gonna need to create standards for certain situations like this, as well as other things that happen. But here's the thing, pretty soon, all the possible scenarios you're gonna come across, and you're gonna be able to use past experiences and lessons of what not to do so that you can do it better in the future. Now, if you like this video, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel and smash that thumbs up button. Tell me if you have a tenant nightmare story. I'd love to hear it. This is Steve Rozenberg, and we'll talk to you next time.